Yes, indeed. It's being supported by our friends at Yamaha Canada Music, and happy birthday to Oscar Peterson, born on this day, August 15th, 1925 in Montreal. One of the greatest Canadian musicians of all time, regardless of genre. And we are thrilled to have assembled a wonderful trio of musicians to celebrate the master. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Hilario Durán and the trio. That's Hilario Durán and the trio celebrating Oscar Peterson. We are in our Long McQuaid Performance Hall. We are delighted that you are with us. We've got a great group that you can hear here in the hall with us. It's great to be with all of you tonight as well. And I just want to let everyone know at home, whether it's Oscar's birthday or not, we are always guided here in our Long McQuaid Performance Hall by a bronze statue of Oscar right up there above the Long McQuaid Performance Hall. So he guides us each and every day with what we do and the decisions we make about the music and how we respect it. So I wanted to introduce the gentleman a little more formally here. Behind the drums is someone who obviously is a fine drummer, a composer, a band leader, an educator, a vocalist. Mark has played on numerous Juno-winning albums, but he's also been nominated for 2 with either the Mark Kelso Project or, of course, the Jazz Exiles. That is Mark Kelso right there, folks. And speaking of versatility, whether it's a symphony or whether it's a jazz band, it's a bassist, it's a composer, it's an amazing producer and educator, also a 2-time Juno nominee, and the most recent is The Next Step, which is a terrific album. That's Roberto Occhipinti right there, folks. The heavy hitters are here tonight, folks. And over there, our leader tonight, Cuban-Canadian pianist, composer, arranger. He's worked with Dizzy, Michel Legrand, Arturo Sandoval. He is a 2-time Juno winner, a Grammy nominee. That's Hilario Durán right there, folks. One of the best. Hilario, I just want to ask you quickly before we hear another tune. I know for a long time Oscar's music wasn't available to you in Cuba, but I know someone very special introduced you to the music of Oscar Peterson. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, what I can say is that there's really, as a pianist, playing bebop like that, Oscar is the strongest influence I have to play jazz. You know, even I didn't have the opportunity to, when I was in Cuba, it was difficult to find his music anywhere. Like, I remember that I heard, one of the first time I heard Oscar was in the program of the Voice of America of Willie Conover, and that we used to listen avidly, like every time they played there, and also through the vinyl disc collectors in the city, I have the opportunity to have access to Oscar. But it wasn't until I came here to Canada in 1998 where I have finally the opportunity to have more access to his music. And also when I have the opportunity to buy the first book of Oscar with all the solos and improvising like that. So what I can say is that really Oscar is like, for saxophone players like Charlie Parker, is the big reference that I have for jazz. I think for myself that Oscar is the jazz pianist that have to have reference for all the pianists to learn how to play bop. You know, I consider Oscar the greatest jazz pianist on the planet.
Well, it's so great to hear you take a tune like Sea Jam Blues and give it your style and your spirit along with these musicians. That's special to hear that mashup of what you can bring to the music of Oscar Peterson. So thank you for that beautiful first tune.
And for me, it's a great honor to be chosen to do this. Like, it's like a dream come true, you know?
Well, it's lovely to have you here. I'm going to ask you guys the same thing. Not if you met him, not if you cross paths. Maybe we'll deal with that later. But Roberto, do you remember just hearing his music for the first time or being influenced by his music for the first time?
Well, I have to say that it's Oscar Peterson's fault that I'm playing the bass.
So that's an influence, I'm
guessing. That was definitely an influence. I was 13 years old. I went in my school library, and I put on Night Train. And I heard the tune we just played, Sea Jam Blues, walking bass with Ray Brown, and bam, that was it. I never ever had to think about what I was going to do for the rest of my life, just for that one recording. So it's yeah, and I mean I met Oscar over the years, not a lot, and I played on one of the Christmas albums, just in the orchestra. But his bass player was Dave Young, who's sort of my mentor. I've worked with him forever. And as a matter of fact, we got some of the charts for today from Dave, from the book that he had from Oscar.
That the Oscar would have played with the trio?
Yeah, well, the charts that he used when he played with Oscar. So Wheatland, for instance, we got that. And we've, Hilario's done something special with all of them. But that's our starting
That's
point.
authentic, ladies and gentlemen. We got the charts right from ground zero there. And Mark, but Oscar's music in your life as a young person?
Yeah, for me, it's going back to high school, back in the 70s. The Ontario Place Forum, which was one of the greatest places to see a concert with the revolving stage. Oscar used to play there always on a Saturday night for the jazz festival. And so I probably went down there 6 years in a row with my high school buddies into college. We just go camp out, sit there, and I saw Oscar every year, with Niels Henning, Oscar Peterson, and also with Dave, Martin Drew. And I just remembered just being astonished at the virtuosity of his playing. And then, of course, when he had his TV show in the 80s, it was like the only jazz TV show on television, and it was a Canadian show. I used to sit up and watch it every week, just sitting there going, okay, man, let me check out, close up on Ed Thigpen and stuff. It was a brilliant time,
Well, I think everyone's got some memories about how Oscar's music touched them first time. Hilario, what's the next selection we're going to hear right now?
Yes, a Cakewalk.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Hilario Durán, Roberto, and Mark Kelso here with Cakewalk. How about that? Hilario Durán and Roberto Occhipinti and Mark Kelso with a version of Wheatland that's a little different than we usually get to hear. Hilario, so great to have that arrangement of it done like that. Obviously, there's a great swinging part in the middle there, but what would you call that breakdown at the end of the tune? What is that feel that we...
I wanted to do this a little bit as a dance song style. You know, that song style is a Cuban musical style. That the dance song that comes from the contradanza from the 19th century, and the dance song has the first part with that's the first part, and after has the montuno at the end that we improvise a little bit over that over a tumbao at the end, and that's I want to do this approach to this song.
It's so fresh and so great.
Yeah,
you know, I wanted to ask, I'll ask Roberto and Mark this too. You know, swing is kind of, when you think about Oscar, you also think of technique in the highest way. And the marriage of his feel along with the unbelievable technique he had seemed like a marriage that, I guess had been there a lot of times, but it seemed like he was really right at the tip of a feel and also technique, and I'm just wondering about that sense of swing and that sense of technique. When you listen to Oscar, what are the things that jump out at you, Roberto? Is it just, boy, that's in the pocket, or watch him dance on those keys?
Well, the thing about Oscar Peterson is he's part of the whole continuum history of jazz piano. Art Tatum, that's where he came from, that thing there. But the idea of just the swing, that's with Oscar, the big thing also, and this is what ties in with what we're doing too, is the idea of the trio thing, where it's like this motor of swing that keeps going. So it's not just one person carrying the whole thing. It's like it's like I say, a locomotive of time. And the reason why Oscar had such prodigious technique was from his classical background as his genius, but the facility is enhanced by the strong sense of rhythm and swing, and that same thing. It's like you're listening to it and you hear the technique, but most of the notes for musicians, when we hear this stuff, it sounds inevitable. It's not like it doesn't sound like, well, I'm going to work this one out. It's just, no, that's the way it's supposed to go, even if it might be something he's never played before. I mean, I relate that very much to the trio with Ray Brown, because again, I'm the bass player of the group, so I gravitated toward that whole thing. But it's a conceptual thing. The conceptual thing is tied into having that strong rhythmic facility and with the technique. And whether you play a lot or you play a little, but if you have that strong rhythmic sense, then you can really do anything.
You already mentioned Ed Thigpen before. Mark, tell me about his role in that legendary trio. Obviously a supportive role, but what was the magic of Ed's part in that trio?
Well, he could play any of those beautifully slow tempos and make it feel great. But then with Oscar, you knew at some point there was going to be some blistering fast tempo, and Ed could just keep it at a super quiet dynamic, even if it was 100 miles an hour on brushes. And he'd just be going, do you know how hard that is? It's so difficult. And he just made it look like it was the easiest thing in the world. Just doing that all night long, easy. So you had to really have a good grasp, a wide spectrum of playing extremely fast and extremely slow with Oscar at an incredibly quiet dynamic.
That seems like the magic is when you're distilling something that is incredibly hard and making it seem effortless.
Yeah.
is kind of the beauty in a lot of what we're talking about here. Hilario, you're going to play us another one. This one actually has Bossa in the title, so tell me a little bit about this.
Bossa Begin.
Yes.
We're going to play Bossa Begin. After we play another one called Amaña from the Hispanic album that he made. This is Bossa Begin.
Gorgeous. Hilario Durán, Roberto Occhipinti, and Mark Kelso. You're with Jazz FM 91. We are celebrating the birthday of Oscar Peterson live from our Long and McQuaid Performance Hall on this beautiful evening with some great folks here. So far, so good. Do you think? Yes. Gee-miny. Yikes. You know, Hilario, we talk about Oscar, about his feel and his technique, but composer, too, sometimes that's the one that gets left a little bit on the sideline, but you're playing tunes that are instantly recognizable that Oscar wrote. I was wondering if he had any influence on you as composer, Oscar. Was that part of something that got to you and was reflected in your music?
The main influence that I have from Oscar is his improvising, mostly, you know. The way that he plays, the way that he phrases, how his runs are really fast. That's during my life I have all this influence from different jazz artists, different pianists, from different jazz pianists like Errol Garner, like some other. But Oscar was the one that really inspired me most. You know.
Well, I think in that last solo you showed us some of the
Yeah,
maybe
try.
improvisational technique.
I don't know. I tried, and even because also I was investigating about Oscar. And I know how he practiced a lot of churning, so I try to do the same thing myself, you know, and that's why they trying to imitate him the best way as possible. You know?
I just want everyone who's listening at home to know that our drummer Mark Kelso played most of that tune with his hands, by the way, just picking up the brushes for the bass solo. That was really cool. Roberto, we were talking earlier about sort of these, you had mentioned, and I hadn't really heard it put this way before, about these two kind of streams of the trio, of the piano trio. And as someone who I know on your last album, you celebrated piano trio, that was what it was all about. But can you just tell me about those two schools that you mentioned, and Oscar being certainly a big part of one of them?
Yeah, well, it's, you know, there seems to be like two kind of templates for piano trios. The Oscar Peterson one with the hard swinging, actually even the way they set up was different than this. Oscar had a certain way of playing. He would always have the bass and the drums behind him. He'd have their back, but they'd be set up behind there because he wanted to be able to hear every this is before monitors and all that kind of stuff. So he wanted to be really close to have the guys there. So there was that template. But when I say the template of piano trios, with the trio of Oscar with Ray Brown, Ed Thigpen, or the variations of that group, versus the Bill Evans kind of trio thing, where the one is the hard swinging thing, the other one is more introspective interplay kind of thing. And you hear that in you know various bands, various trios now. Keith Jarrett trio is leaning towards that side there.
Nat
King Cole, of course, is a huge influence on Oscar Peterson. But you know, people like Cyrus Chestnut's trios, that kind of thing. So now, I mean, the way we're doing these things here is we're kind of both. We do the interactive thing and the idea of a groove thing. I will say, I just wanted to clarify.
Please.
What Hilario was, the thing that he also shares with Oscar Peterson is a very strong classical music piano technique. When he's talking about the Czerny exercises, these are like some of the hardest, strongest things to play on the piano. And to have that kind of technique it all comes from playing Chopin, from Liszt, all that kind of stuff there, and that's the thing they both share, that approach to the piano.
That classical music was a big influence on you, Hilario, as well as jazz?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no
Absolutely.
jazz schools in Cuba, right? There's not like we have there. It's just they would learn, and the thing also, I'm bum rushing the microphone because I'm going to talk about my good friend
Please.
Hilario. Because the thing that makes his music really different is the fact that we have this in our back pocket. Even though Mark and I are not Cubans, we have this whole repertoire, this whole language that we've learned. You know, I learned most of my stuff through Hilario to be able to play the kind of music. So we can just throw it in every once in a while. The very first piece we played was C-Jam Blues, but he mixed it in with a Cuban jam session from 1964 called Gandunga.
GMS.
Yeah, Gandunga,
Gandinga,
Mondongos.
Mondongo, Sandunga.
And those are various,
From Fran Emilio.
those
Fra-
are
the
very-
great Fran Emilio Flynn.
yeah, various cuts of pork. Yes.
You know?
But it's got that.
Because,
and-
you know what? Because Cuban are obsessed with food. You know?
And so that's what makes his music and him a unique individual, and the fact that he's got all that other stuff in the back pocket.
Well, you're taking this Oscar music tonight and you're making it this other unique sound, which makes it so fresh and unique. I mentioned, Mark, you playing that with your hands. When you make a decision like that, is that something that Hilario, as the leader of the trio, would say, hey, Mark, I want you to go to your hands on that and that? Or is those decisions that you make because it feels right, it sounds right, it's the right tone and texture you want to convey?
It's about 6 o'clock today. We were practicing the tune. It was a cha-cha. And then he went, Mark, can you play like a conga thing on your snare drum? I said, yeah, okay. And it was instantly completely changed. So that was kind of the first time we played it that way, the whole way through. So he asked me to do that. And because I have some conga technique, I know parts of the patterns and the concept. So I just kind of adapted it to a drum kit because I don't have any congas here.
So it's about getting thrown a sort of a curveball and
Yes.
then doing something unique with it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I thought it worked.
And that was thanks to Shanguito that taught you to do this on the congas, actually. You know?
Roberto, you mentioned that you worked in the studio briefly with Oscar on a Christmas album. Is there anything that came from that experience? It's all business, or is it just get the job done and go? Is there fun and frolicking going on in there, or what's going on?
Well, it's actually, you guys play the Christmas album every year, and
do.
I'm just one of the bow jockeys sawing away in the background, so I didn't really get to do anything special. But Dave Young was, and he got me on the gig. Yeah, so
I'll be using Bo Jockey now
you like
moving
that
forward.
one? Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hilario, we're going to play one of not only one of Oscar's most famous pieces, but a very important piece from Oscar Peterson as well. I understand you may have had a chance encounter with Oscar at one point too when you played this selection.
Yes, because that was a few years back when I got hired to play a tribute to Oscar. They were doing a tribute to Oscar in a theater in College Street, and they called me to play this piece, Hymn to Freedom, and to accompany the great Jackie Richardson, and another male singer. I don't remember his name, but because of that, I was like a kind of 2 weeks practicing gospel music because I never played gospel before, so I really wanted to do this in the right way, and so we played this gift for Oscar, and it was great. He was actually very emotional, and I saw that he was very emotional when he played, and also because Jackie, you know, so great. Jackie when she sings she. So in that moment, that was when I had the opportunity finally to shake hands with Oscar at the end of the show, and that for me was one of the highlights of my life.
My understanding is he cried. You're saying emotional, but that must have been a special moment there to play that tune for Oscar.
Yeah.
Can you make us emotional right now by playing this selection?
I try my best. I try my
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I want to let everyone know, by the way, that's Mark Kelso on the drums, that's Roberto Occhipinti playing bass, and that's Hilario Durán. You're with Jazz FM 91. We're celebrating Oscar tonight with that beautiful music. But I also want to let you know that Hilario has a brand new album coming out, and we're excited about it. It's called Cry Me a River. It'll be out September 8th. It's a large ensemble record, and we're really excited about it. The buzz is good, Hilario, is what everyone's saying. So we look forward to hearing the new album, and I want everyone to be aware of some great new music from one of the most talented members of our music community here in Canada today. I think one more will get us there, you think? Yeah?
One more, yeah.
I want to thank everyone for being here. Peter, thank you so much for being here. Thanks to our board members for being here. Thanks for all of you for being here tonight. And Jelani and all the gang that made it all happen. Glenn, thank you so much. And just an absolute pleasure to, have music happening in our hall again. It should happen all the time. And to have three of the best to be here on this special day with Oscar Peterson. It's been a real pleasure for all of us, and I'm sure all of our listeners. So these guys right here, everyone, come on, let's give it up for them. The best of the best.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we're gonna finish this with a piece composed by the great Ernesto Lecuona, one of the greatest pianist and composer from Cuba. And this is called Danza Negra, and actually I made this arrangement is inspired on the style of Oscar Peterson. And yes, I want to know what do you think about it. This is the Danza Negra of Ernesto Lecuona with a little bit of Oscar.
Occhipinti, Mark Kelso. Thank you so much. Sounds so great. Thanks to all of you for coming. Thanks to our friends at Yamaha Canada Music. And happy birthday, Oscar!